Okay, just hang on. And you can start.
Way. So welcome everybody to another FBS chat. Tonight we have the wonderful Gil Greene, Emeritus Professor from Ohio State University, who we have been having Zoom calls with over the past few weeks. He has a wealth of knowledge, loads of videos that we're trying to steal from him, but he's not giving it up. He just won't give them up. And we've seen videos from Steve DeShazer from the solution-focused approach, which we'd never seen before, and we can't wait for part 2, Gil.
I'm looking forward to it too, as well as sharing more solution-focused therapy videos with you that I have.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about how, tell us how you first came across the approach and what sort of drew you to it.
Well, because I've been in this business a long time, so I got my master's of social work in 1974, and probably first discovered solution focus started around 1990, 1992. Just starting to read about it, and I think the first thing I read was. I think there's a seminal article on this that came out in 1986 in Family Process by the group at the Brief Family Therapy Center in Milwaukee. And before that, I was heavily steeped in the Mental Research Institute approach to strategic therapy, the MRI approach, which they were using at Milwaukee. And so my reading of and take on the history is that solution-focused therapy sort of evolved out of the MRI approach, and the MRI approach looking at defining the problem, being problem-focused, defining the problem, and looking at what are the clients' attempts to solve the problem that are maintaining the problems. So vicious cycles, problem-maintaining patterns. And I was teaching that and using that clinically, doing part-time private practice at the time, and along with structural family therapy and working with couples and families, and finding it pretty effective. So I really wasn't looking for anything new. And then when I read their first article in 1986, I thought, this is interesting. But I didn't immediately jump on the bandwagon, so to speak. But then in 92, I moved from teaching a faculty position at Michigan State University to Ohio State University. And it was about that time I really started integrating in my teaching, and then started doing some part-time private practice and using my private practice. And I would have to say throughout my professional career, I've been on the lookout for what works, doing what works. And I just started finding that the solution-focused approach was even more effective, at least initially, with a wide range of client configurations than anything else I've been using up to that time. So it sort of reinforces itself when you start using it, and seeing that it works, it's effective. It just starts to reinforce itself. And I have to say, first time I used the miracle question, I flopped, but it didn't work. I asked it incorrectly, and at that point I was kind of just training myself through reading, and then getting my hands on whatever videos I could. And so that's why I flopped initially, but the next time I used it, I kind of refined it and then found it. Wow, this is good stuff.
And so you qualified as a social worker, and so at the time, I guess you wasn't using that approach while you were a social worker, but you taught it to social work students.
Yeah, at first I started teaching it, but soon after that I started using it. I mean, it was almost about the same time. So yeah, throughout most of my career, I've taught second-year master's students, MSW students, different clinical social work courses, therapy courses, working with individual adults, couples and family therapy, crisis intervention, trauma treatment, some group therapy.
Why do you think this approach is so versatile, Gil? Why does it seem to work with so many different presenting problems, if you like?
Well, the research and over the years, I mean, there have been decades of research on therapeutic effectiveness, outcome studies, and then multiple meta-analysis of studies have been accumulating over the years. And it's been found that no one approach is more effective than any other. That any coherent approach is effective for most clients, about 80% of clients. So no one approach is more effective than the other. What accounts for it are common factors. And so there's lots of literature, especially in the last 15 or 20 years, on common factors in therapy and in couples and family therapy. And there's no research to back this up, but I just think the solution-focused approach encompasses the common factors, delivers more of the common factors than any other approaches that I'm aware of. Again, it's not saying that the research shows that solution-focused therapy is any more effective, but I think that you master the solution-focused approach and you can get more accomplished with more different kinds of clients, regardless of diagnosis, presenting problem, or configuration. When I say configuration, being individual, couple, family. Some of the first research used solution-focused therapy in group therapy, and found it effective.
And I know you've sent us a couple of papers to read, and I've done my homework.
Okay.
I read it too. Thank you, Joe.
All right. Sorry. But one was how empowering it is to the client. Why is this approach so empowering for the client in this way of working?
Yeah, glad you brought that up. Well, first of all, as you say that the research shows that most clients, by and large, are not feeling very empowered when we first encounter it. They have a sense of external locus of control rather than internal, or they're lacking a great sense of personal agency. So we talk about, or there's a lot in the literature about client empowerment, but that is a byproduct of how we work with clients and how we talk with clients. It's not something we give to them. It's a byproduct of how we work with clients. So for one, it's very seen as client-centered. That is, the solutions come from the client. We work collaboratively with clients. We take this one down, non-expert position with clients. So, and I hate to use that term, it's sort of a cliche. It's a paradigm shift. It is a different way of viewing the world, but especially working with clients. And like any paradigm shift, it takes a little while for that to occur. But once you experience that, internalize that, you know that the client has it within them to find the solutions, the competencies, the skills, and that sort of the assumption is somewhere in the client, they know how not to have the problem, whatever it is. And our job is to connect with and sort of activate that part within the context of the relationship in the conversation. And so, I mean, client-centered therapy was first created by Rogers, considered client-centered Rogerian therapy, but it's the solution focused approach, I find, has a structure to it, and say conversational tools, questions that we ask to, I think, move things along in a more focused, intentional direction. Still, the client is sort of directing it. We have, since we say the client is the expert, but we do have to have expertise in knowing how to structure the therapy and how to ask questions. But again, the answers and solutions come from them, and of course, a central piece of this is then looking with clients in the conversation, looking for those times when they don't have the problem, when things are better, looking for specific examples and behavioral indicators of that, and then following that up with what I'm now referring, and maybe others have, as personal agency questions. That is, how did you get that to happen? Asking clients. I mean, which people do normally. I'm just labeling that this is a personal agency question. It's because it helps sort of identify what clients do, the personal agency they bring to making things better, or just a little bit better. And I think that's empowering as well.
Yeah. And I think for anyone watching that's maybe thinking about adopting the approach, I think that's a difficult one to get over in terms of, if the client knew how to solve the problem, they wouldn't be speaking to us. Do you see what I mean? So it's kind of, I suppose, difficult if you haven't actually sat there and used it, which we have. It's a difficult one to get your head around, to think, well, if they knew the answer, they wouldn't be sitting with you.
Right. So your question is, I do have a question.
How do we persuade people that are very directive that to trust in the client?
To trust in the client. Well, that's a good question as well, because I think a lot of people who may getting acquainted with solution-focused therapy but not immediately embracing it, that is one of their concerns, and I think you frame that well. If they have the answers, why are they here? Why are they sitting in front of you, or nowadays sitting in front of you on in telehealth? But and that is part of the paradigm shift. And so, like myself with students, in class, let me put this back up in, this sort of helps me organize teaching and training, is we gotta know how people learn, and there's a lot of literature on this. Is first you explain what it is you want them to learn, whether it's therapy or learning how to dance or hit a golf ball, which I'm still struggling to do. Explain to them, and then it's demonstrated for them, either in person, in vivo, or show them a video. And then you ask the client to do the skill. You observe, and then give them feedback on what they did well and how they might improve. And then they do it again in light of the feedback, and then you give them the feedback again. So it sort of helps me organize teaching and training. Is you explain whatever it is. You explain solution-focused therapy and strengths and exception and scaling and miracle question. And this is one reason why I've accumulated a pretty good video library over the years of my own, paid for out of my pocket. so that I have different examples and for different classes I teach as well, so they can see the videos. And then as much as I can in class, have students role play the skills in small groups, and then I'll float around in the groups and observe and give them feedback and things like that. And the feedback I've gotten from students is vast majority of students like that, that kind of teaching flow, so to speak. Most of the feedback I get from students, they enjoy the videos. Occasionally I'll get, and these are written comments at the end of the semester. Occasionally I'll get a comment from a student, "You show too many videos." and that's true. I mean, people have different learning styles. But my reading of the literature and feedback I've gotten is most people really enjoy the visual examples, whether it's in video or sometimes I will demonstrate in class and a role play myself.
One of the papers you sent us, because we touched on the miracle question, was how you experimented by changing the word miracle. Tell us about that.
You're soon talking about the dream question.
Yeah.
That came out of a small study that I did with a well-known solution-focused therapist and researcher, Mo-Yi Lee. Soon after she joined the faculty at Ohio State, I came in '92, and then I think she came in '95, and she got a small seed grant and to do some research. And so through my connections, we got her hooked up with a community mental health center here in Columbus. And so together with a couple of supervisors in their outpatient program and some of their frontline therapists, we did a small pilot study on, we had a 6-session protocol for working with clients who met the diagnostic criteria for depression. I'm not a big fan of diagnosis, and but this is what we had to do. And so in the planning of the study, and we had a conversation, Mo-Yi and I, together with the 2 senior supervisors there and a couple of other clinicians involved in the study, is there any way that, given the nature of people experiencing depression, is there any way we might need to, or we can enhance things by modifying any of the solution-focused questions and techniques? And I had just fairly recently read something about depression being a problem of disempowerment, people lacking power. People who are experiencing depression as lacking power, and also around that time had been reading about internal and external locus of control, and how that relates to personal agency and empowerment. So anyway, in our conversation, this kind of emerged out of our group conversation, is that when you think about it, we ask the miracle question. We're thinking, well, now you say the miracle happens and you wake up, and what's the first thing you notice that'll let you know that you're no longer feeling depressed? Well, the way we framed it then is that the miracle is something as external to you, to the person. And so the solution is coming from the miracle. And of course, also we knew about the miracle question, as Steve DeShazer and Insuberg explained it to us, how it was inspired by the crystal ball technique of Milt Erickson. Well, also I had read a lot of Erickson's work, and I'd been had some training in hypnosis myself, and I was also aware of the fact that he at times would say to clients that the answer might come between sessions, between seeing them, might come to them in a dream. And so we thought, well, now the dream is something, it's a product of ourselves. The miracle's out here. The dream comes from within. So we just modified the miracle question to make it the dream question into the dream question, so that the source of the problem being resolved or noticing some measurable improvement comes from the dream while you're sleeping. And then we say, and so when you first wake up, you know, you had this dream, you found the resources you need for the problem to be resolved. And, you know, with dreams, you may or may not remember the dreams, but whether you remember it or not, you notice that things are different. And in this case of depression, you're feeling better. Depression doesn't seem to be so present as you first wake up. So what would be the first thing you notice that will let you know that you have this dream, and the dream provided the answers and resources you needed? I'm kind of mangled. I'm just very much paraphrasing the dream question, but it's like I said, a variation on the miracle question. Does that answer your question about that? And I would say that in the study we just gave that to the frontline clinicians who were doing the therapy, and we were collecting data from their work. We gave that as an option, and we had the frontline clinicians video record the sessions for later supervision and analysis. And one of the senior supervisors had a client young man, probably 21, 22, and was very, very depressed. And he came in, he had a baseball cap on with an oversized bill and his head down, and you couldn't see his face. And the therapist, his first name is Rich, he asked all the solution-focused questions, including the miracle question, and this client just didn't raise his head. And we watched the video after that session, and then we said, well, maybe try the dream question. So the next session, same thing, the client came in, he was like that. And so maybe 5 or 10 minutes into the session, Rich asked the dream question, and the guy raised his head. And for the first time, you could really see his face, and he started getting more animated and engaged in the conversation. For some reason, that question just really clicked with him.
I have a few questions, Gil, that people are asking. So I'll start with Yuri's one. How about clients who have their own ideas about psychotherapy? For example, they saw in the movie psychotherapy similar to psychoanalysis, and their expectation is different from your practice. Does this happen?
Good question. Well, that also the research shows that really what's important in terms of the common factors is the fit between your approach and also just you as a person, as a therapist, and the client. And that if you know this right from the beginning, the client has some really preconceived ideas about therapy because of a show they watched or movie. So it's important to explain how you work. How do you work with clients? And is that something they're willing to try? And to see if they're willing to buy into it. Client buy-in to your approach is very important. And if the client doesn't appeal to the client, then you're not the person for them. But if they say, I'm willing to give it a try, then you go from there and check with the client. In terms of the common factors, there's let me just mention those if that's okay with you, what those are, because it kind of fits here. Therapeutic alliance, and that's been operationalized as consisting of positive affective bonds, mutual agreement upon goals, and mutual agreement upon tasks for achieving those goals. Now, I think the first two, solution-focused therapy, does really well by focusing on strengths, really just being empathic, being interested in people, and then the emphasis on goal setting. I just think the solution focused approach has just contributed good stuff in the literature on how to do goals and the importance of goal setting, how to operationalize that. You do those two things well, that's good. That's good clinical work right there, and consistent with that. And then this is the tasks. This is where the tasks come in, and different approaches have different tasks, so to speak. And so you have those three: the therapeutic alliance, operationalize those three pieces. The other, a couple other things that have been added to the literature, sort of by the modern day godfather of the common factors, is Bruce Wampold, psychologist. I think he's at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and has written extensively, done many meta-analysis of various kinds. But something he emphasizes, as well as others, is, does the client respond to your approach? This is where a fit comes in, and also therapists' allegiance to their model. And by therapist allegiance, I'm talking about, does a therapist believe in the effectiveness of their approach? So are they confident in it, but also are they competent in it? Therapist allegiance. And then client, quote unquote, buy-in to it. That and a proxy for that is, does the client get better? Do they keep appointments? Do clients keep appointments? And are they making progress? And for me, using scaling is every session is a great way to monitor progress. Scale the problem and the goal. And I like to use 0 as the worst the problem can be, and 10 is complete resolution of the problem, and say that with clients, and use that to monitor progress. If the client's not keeping appointments and or missing appointments, or they're just not getting better, they're bogged down, then that's feedback to us that we need to try something different, so to speak. Or maybe you're just not the best therapist for that client. Maybe a referral would be in order. I hope that answers the question.
We have another question. This is from lovely Ginny, who we've obviously given her a bit of a headache. So is it that the catalyst for change is external, implied within the miracle question, or do we continue to feel the actual changes come from within, head hurting?
Head hurting. Well,
we're lucky that's all. We're lucky that's all Jeannie said.
Actually, I find the miracle question works well most of the time. Now, I think sometimes it doesn't really work with some clients. It just, or doesn't. It's not appropriate for them. Maybe they just not religious, or maybe they have their religious beliefs have a different take on miracles. For some people, it just doesn't really connect and resonate. But most people it does. And most people it is effective. And so the way to make that, the move from external to internal is, so with the miracle, say the source of the things being better when you first wake up is the miracle. And then follow that up with personal agency questions. So in that you could ask, so when are there little pieces of that miracle happening now in your life? Or when was the last time? And then how did you get that to happen? And so moving from the external to internal is very important in that, so that clients have a sense of personal agency.
Okay, I've got 2 more. Erin, the lovely Erin says, miss last few shows. This is really interesting. What initiatives do you utilize in dealing with multi-layer clients, such as those of ethnic background who may have language issues?
Well, for one, if different language is an issue, you have to have a interpreter, really. And one way I've been keeping involved in the field for the last several years is doing co-life supervision of a group of 5 or 6 second-year MSW interns at a local agency here in Columbus. And so we do that throughout the school year every week. So for the 9 months. And so there are times when we have to use interpreters. But we find working through an interpreter using a solution-focused approach works very well. It just slows down the process a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah, I've actually found that as well. I was having a discussion with Joe about this skill. And even though my Turkish is okay, I do find that if on average I see a client 6 sessions, I would probably see them 8 to 9.
Yeah.
Because within the solution-focused practices, you need to be able to use the client's words, and sometimes the translation isn't the same. So I've almost got to play around with those words until they get it. Because asking the miracle day question in Turkish it sounds terrible when you translate it. So I ask about it in a roundabout way, but I still get it. But it does add on a few sessions, but you can get there. Mark, our lovely Mark.
Well, before we get to Mark, that's a good question, Mark. But or we can come back to it, the previous question, unless if you're interested.
No, carry on.
Well, conversation about cultural differences. How does solution-focused approach work with clients of different cultural backgrounds? Your example, Ayse, with how miracle question in Turkish sounds awful. I mean, really is a good example of that. But I think to me, I think it is one of the best, if not the best, approach cross-culturally, because you're really tuning into the clients and it being so client-centered and working with what are they customers for, and being strength-based and looking for their exception and building on their exceptions and competencies. That's different than what most people have experienced if they have any previous experience in social service agencies, other mental health agencies, and that really resonates with them. And but also being so client-centered, we want to find out, they're the experts on their reality and on their culture and what works best for them. So in that regard, they're there to teach us about it.
Well, if I don't use the word miracle and I can't use the word dream. So what, and this is probably because my vocabulary isn't brilliant in Turkish. But the way that I find that I ask is, if you went to sleep, you went to bed tonight, and you wake up in the morning, and the problems no longer existed. And I kind of play it that way, without using the word dream or miracle. The problems no longer existed. You woke up and it wasn't there.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah.
So I can use that, but when I did use, you woke up tomorrow and a miracle happened overnight, they just look at me, because a miracle is actually a miracle.
Yeah.
And culturally, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
It's never ever, and they'd stop you.
You just don't play. You don't play with that.
Yeah. So culturally, I couldn't get past that. No matter how much I Googled the translation, I wasn't getting anywhere. So I just changed the language that I was using where they would understand.
Yeah. The miracle question, because it's so different and novel, it's an intervention in and of itself. But also, it's a great vehicle for getting goals, getting getting clients to describe a future without the problem, what that will look like.
Mm.
So another way of getting at that is what I refer to as outcome questions.
Mm.
So you don't use the miracle dream question. So you scale. I find scaling is a way of doing that. So 0 is the worst the problem could be. 10 is just perfect resolution, no problem whatsoever. Where are you on the scale today? And so you get them to define that, further describe that. And when we're done working together, when we're ready to stop meeting like this, where do you want to be on the scale? And getting them just, what would that look like? How will you know that? How will other people know that? How will your significant other, employees, friends, what will they see different about you? And again, getting good, clear behavioral indicators is very important. And then backing that up and saying, so let's say you're at a 1 today. So how do you know when you move up to a 2? And so asking, usually scaling, so where do you want to be on the scale is a way of getting them to describe the problem in concrete, specific ways. Other ways of getting that to say, so let's say you've accomplished everything you want in our work together, and it's our last session. How will I know? What will you be telling me? What will I be seeing different about you that will let me know that it's time for us to stop seeing each other? Or let's say we run into each other out in the mall or in the street, and we're catching up and ask you, how are things going? And you tell me where you are on the scale and what's different in your life. They're just different ways of getting that. Let's say it's our last session, and in the previous week, somebody followed you around, the video recording your life without the problem, or of you being at an 8. And when you bring that video in and we watch it together, what will I see on that video that will let me know that you're at an 8? So there's just different ways of getting at them to describe that goal, that future, without a problem or with acceptable movement, progress on the 0 to 10 problem goal scale continuum.
We're stealing these questions, right, Gil?
Yeah. I don't know if this is old news to you or not, but feel free.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, Joe. Last questions. Aren't our clients empowered in their life?
Yes. Hi, Mark. Thanks for the question. Aren't our clients empowered in their life? Yes, they are. Now, in my mind, the client's sense of empowerment or feeling more empowered.
Oh, Gil, we can't hear you.
There we go.
Somehow my cursor floated over to the mute icon. Anyway, clients feeling empowered is a byproduct of making change. So the purpose of therapy is change and solving problems and finding solutions, achieving goals. And from that, clients may feel more empowered, they may not. But clients feeling empowered isn't the purpose or the main focus. That's a byproduct. Yes, I think we walk in that with the taken for granted assumption, we've internalized the solution-focused frame that clients have the competencies and resources to make the changes that they want to make. They either not using them or they forgot they have them. And so our job is to connect with and activate that part of them that knows how to use those skills and competencies that maybe they have forgotten. And you just got caught up in a vicious cycle, sort of a negative feedback loop, if you will. Another thing is, though, I do think our clients are not feeling empowered themselves. that's probably not a sense they have themselves. Then they're not feeling a sense of personal agency at the time. But again, our assumption is they have that within them, and our job is to have a conversation with them where they remember those or reactivate those that they have forgotten that they have them, or maybe by having the conversation with them, it helps. And we ask about what Walter and Peller in one of the first books I read in Solution Focus came out, I think, in '93, titled Becoming Solution Focused. They referred to it as the hypothetical solution. And they had a little decision tree that you should first ask for exceptions, and clients having trouble coming up with exceptions, then ask the miracle question, which they called referred to as miracle question, but also hypothetical solution question.
And when we was, I think the previous question of talking about, clients' expectations and being quite surprised by the questions that they ask, and whether it's been useful. I think one of the things I like about this approach is that we can directly ask the client, was this session useful? Was there any questions that I didn't ask that you wish I had? So getting that immediate feedback on the session itself is scary, but I think we should do it as a matter of course, maybe.
Oh, I think so. I definitely think that's helpful. You can even use scaling on that. So on a 0 to 10 scale, how well did this session go for you today? Or at least ask them to think about that. I sometimes ask that question at the end of a class.
Are you scared though? Does it? Even if you feel it's gone really badly, is it still worth asking?
Oh yeah. I don't do it every time. You never know. I mean, there are some classes I think just went really well, but from the student's perspective, it didn't, and vice versa. There's some I think, oh, this is terrible, and they, oh no, it's good. They liked it. So you never quite know. But Joe, you mentioned, you used the word expectancy or expectation, and that makes me think of something again that I find so good about solution-focused therapy is the issue of, and this goes in, I think, kind of overlaps with clients feeling empowered, is hope. Hope and expectancy. And that's what I also seen as one of the common factors is hope and expectancy, or also referred to as a placebo effect. But also studies find that a lot of clients are low on hope when they come in. And it overlaps with expectancy, their expectation that things are going to get better. And I'm going to mute here while I clear my throat. But there's a lot of research on clients' sense of hope and expectancy and how that relates to outcomes. So the more hopeful the client is that this therapy is going to be beneficial, of course, they get better. They benefit more from it. But we don't always have clients coming in with a lot of hope and expectancy. There's been some research, but much less, but some research on the therapist's sense of hope and expectancy for the client. And I think that's something solution-focused therapy, by its very nature, communicates to clients through the questions that we ask, through the relationship we develop, and the posture we take, being taking a non-expert position and one down position, that it sets up a positive self-fulfilling prophecy. And there's a lot of research on self-fulfilling prophecy, or also related to behavioral confirmation research on that. So it's very important for us to have a sense of hope and expectancy that clients can and will get better. And I think solution-focused therapy sort of gives us that frame of reference better than any approach that I'm aware of. And by the way, I'm aware of all the most all the approaches out there, having been in this field since 1974 when I got at my MSW. I've read and learned and taught many other approaches as well. And so I sort of come to solution-focused therapy from an informed position, I think.
You know, in your you said you had some private practice as well, Gil.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a mix and match approaches, or are you always sort of completely solution focused, or do sometimes you bring in things from other? Your wealth of knowledge is amazing. So,
well, I think I am integrative, but I think the approaches I integrate are strength based, starting with solution focused and narrative, which I think are kind of first cousins, and they overlap nicely, though they are somewhat conceptualized from different perspectives. And over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, I've seen in reading publications of articles and books by solution-focused therapists, I'm seeing a lot of overlap, but especially the externalizing the problem from narrative therapy, and I'm seeing narrative therapy borrowing from solution focus. But I also still, like I said before, earlier, before being solution focused, I was very much steeped in the MRI approach to strategic therapy, but also the strategic therapy approach of J. Haley, Chloe Madonis, which nowadays is referred to as the Washington School, and then structural family therapies developed by Salvador Minuchin. And but as I see those approaches, the way I conceptualize and use them is they're strength-based as well. But so always start solution-focused. And I think with most clients, you can get everything accomplished you want by being strength-based. Using solution-focused, maybe with a little narrative, mostly like externalizing the problem. And really, in narrative, when they talk about mapping the effects of the problem, you know, they ask what effects the problem have on you, and then looking for, which was originally they framed it as well, let's see, I'm blocking on but essentially exception questions. When are there times you're able to stand up to the problem, resist the influence of the problem? And that's really exception questioning. But I do think that there are clients, you know, if you graph out change and they hit a plateau, and they're still coming in, but they're not moving. You know, they improved. So sometimes this is when I would draw in using a a strategic or structural, if a perspective or techniques, if I'm working with couples and families, but still seeing that the solution, the answers come from them. So with solution-focused therapy, it really gets to amplifying solution patterns. Meaning, like when are things better? What are you doing to get that to happen? So those you're looking for virtuous cycles, solution patterns. And then when they hit this plateau, they're still stuck a little bit in the problem maintaining pattern. And you know, in the MRI approach, the problem maintaining pattern they refer to as first order change. And so our job is to work with clients in a way that they experience second order change. That's a whole nother conversation, perhaps. But Mo Yuli and I do discuss our integration of these approaches in our book, Solution Oriented Social Work Practice. If anybody's interested. Now, Joe, I want to leave enough time to talk about your questions.
Oh, yeah. So, Gil, your top 5 solution-focused questions that you use more than any other, and why those particular ones?
Get your pens and pencils ready and your paper ready.
Oh, he's choking now. Oh, hang on.
Wait. Drum roll.
Well, the questions I haven't written here on staying here. The questions are I have are not all necessarily unique to solution focus, but they're strength based. They're consistent with solution focus. Going back to wanting to reinforce the client's sense of personal agency. And we also, solution focus emphasizes the importance of language and language use and using the client's language, etc. So I'll start off by 2 questions I don't ask.
Oh,
Spirit of reinforcing personal agency. I don't ask, what brings you here?
Okay.
Because when I'm watching videos and I whatever the therapist on the video says, what brings you here? I'm thinking in my own head, the bus, or my Toyota, but that's me. I'm weird that way. Another question I don't ask is, how does that make you feel? And you see the reason why so rather than asking what brings you here, I'll ask something like, what concerns are you having for you to decide that you want to come see someone like me? So it's making it active. They decided. It's an active process. And rather than saying, how does that make you feel? Just saying, how do you feel about that?
Okay.
Or in narrative, I ask, what effect does the problem have on you? So when depression is pushing you around, what effect does that have on you? Let's see. In follow-up questions or in follow-up sessions. Now, I also want to use scaling. In the first session to rank on a continuum on 0 to 10 scale, their problem and their goal. And so early on in follow-up sessions, I want to use scaling to monitor their progress. Where are you today on that? But also want to ask, probably even before I ask that, is how do you want to spend our time today?
Okay.
It's their therapy and putting it back on them. For some reason, I've just found that really helpful. Just to consistently ask that question. How do you want to spend our time today? And of course, I'm thinking in my mind between sessions, as the session approaches, I'm thinking, okay, Gil's going to ask me how I'm going to want to spend my time. So I need to answer that question. I need to have an answer. So now another question, in the MRI approach, we'll ask, what's the problem and what have you done to try to maintain the problem? That's the first order change, the idea that people are caught in vicious cycles. They're just doing the same thing over and over again, hoping to get a different result. And so they're just kind of stuck, bogged down in this vicious cycle. So I want to find out that that's part of their story, the problem and what they have done to try to solve the problem. And then a question I like to ask them, again, really helpful, is I ask, okay, so let me ask you one more question about this. What have you thought about trying, but you haven't? And I found so many times, not I haven't kept track of how many, but a very high percentage of clients have thought of something to try, but they haven't. And between sessions, without me saying anything, they will, on their own, they decide to try it or some variation of it.
Wow.
So it's sort of like an indirect task. Oh, let me say one other thing I don't ask, and what I ask instead is I don't use the term homework.
Okay.
Because I've found, and I learned this years ago from a supervisor / trainer, consultant, because I was feeling kind of stuck with the client, and so he was keeping appointments, but he wasn't doing things between sessions. And she asked, well, what does the word homework mean to him? And then it just hit me, knowing his history, his story, that he had a real negative association to it. So, and which most people have a negative association to homework.
Yeah.
Even if you were a good student in school.
Yeah.
None of us like doing homework, you know.
Yeah, go on.
So rather than using the term homework, I just said between session task or between session activity.
When we were, because we worked in secondary schools, Gil, where they changed the word homework to home learning.
Okay.
Just to take the bit of, just to take the word work out of it.
So
like you say, it has, oh my God, homework. It's got that connotation.
So you came up with that on your own. Good work.
So, yeah, the school changed it to home learning, and it didn't seem to have such a negative reaction when you said it that way.
Yeah, we all like to learn. You just don't want to have to work at it. Yeah. Let's see. So I'm also very family systems oriented, and especially working with children and adolescents with problems, but also with couples, family systems oriented. And so another question I came up with, and also I like doing genograms, and there is some literature on using a solution focus genograms from a solution focused approach. And so, but this was something even before I learned solution focus and saw these publications, which came a few years later in the literature, I kind of came up with these questions to sort of get the conversation to talking about family. Is who in your family is giving you the best advice?
Oh, okay.
So that's a way, because I don't like to go in and just do a genogram interview. I want to get as in the conversation as they're giving me family information. I'm doing the genogram on a pad in my lap, which I share with them and show them. So I wouldn't necessarily ask questions about family or family of origin. I would just listen for it. But if they weren't, and most people would eventually, but if they weren't, then one way to get them to talk about that was this question is, like I said, who in your family is giving you the best advice? And another variation of that sort of is who in your way has had a similar problem like this, and what they do to successfully deal with it.
Oh, yeah.
So way of getting them to talk about family, but also in terms of positives, in terms of strengths. And another thing about questions, which is something that came out of the original group that developed solution-focused therapy, using presuppositional questions. Using an example would be, rather than saying, if you move up 1 point on the scale, so saying that is when you move up. So presupposing that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like I said, that was something given to us by the original developers of solution-focused therapy. Now, those are some that I think are consistent with being solution-focused, the list there I gave. Of course, I use a full range of the solution-focused questions. In terms of between session tasks, a couple of my favorite ones would be if clients answer the miracle question very well, I mean, with concrete, specific answers, with the follow-up questions. So one I like to use is, between now and the next time we meet, pretend the miracle has happened. And there are variations of that. You can say, for the first half hour of every day, or for the first hour, or you say pick one day and pretend the miracles happen. Another one I like is just built on using the scaling question, and as what we've talked about, asking them, so how when you move from a 2 to a 3. And so the between session task would be, so between now and the next time we meet, pay attention and notice when you move up 1 point on the scale, and then just come back and tell us about that. We can talk about that.
That's a lovely question. We're definitely nicking that one, Gil. Yeah. Oh, mate. Wow, it's already been an hour. We could go on all night. You're so fascinating. I really
fun.
Gil. What?
Gil, are you Gil?
Yes.
No, go.
Gil. Joe asked, how did we meet? I actually can't remember. Did I send you a message via Facebook?
It was on Facebook, and we were Facebook friends. Somehow we became Facebook friends.
As you do.
And you posted a question on Facebook. I can't remember what it was. And somebody responded. And again, somebody I don't know personally, just Facebook friends, said, you should talk to Gil Greene.
Who was that?
And then you messaged me and we set up a time. First, you and I chatted on Facebook or Zoom.
Zoom.
Excuse me. Get some more water. Then next, you and I and Joe talked.
I should never have shared you with Joe.
and then Graina joined us.
Yeah. And I as much as I love Joe and Graina, I just don't think I could share anymore.
And then excuse me, the last time we met, what was that, last week? We watched a video together.
Yeah.
And I really look forward to doing more of that with you guys.
Oh gosh, yeah, we need to book that in. It's just been very hectic here, but that's
whatever. I'm flexible. Whatever works for you.
And for us, it's not just watching the videos. It's being in your company. You're such a wonderful person and a huge inspiration to us. So we thank you for that. But you are, when we do talk to other colleagues and they said, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" Well, we're with Granddad tonight. Well, I call you Granddad. We're with Granddad tonight. Granddad's teaching us tonight, and I absolutely love it because you're just. I just want to give you a huge hug. And there's going to be a time I'm going to hug you and not let you go.
Yeah, I'm a hugger, so that's fine.
Yeah, and I keep threatening Gil that I'm just going to jump on the plane when I can, turn up at his door and just make camp, and just sit there and just watch him and just go through the videos and you and it's not just the videos. Honestly, you are what a wonderful person you are, and we are so lucky to have you in our lives.
Well, I've really loved meeting you guys and love the work that you're doing. You guys are doing great work and love hearing about it because everybody's application of this is their own, and theirs and their clients. And so there's lots of room for creativity and innovation. And so I love hearing about it and also really enjoyed getting to know you guys as people. And always having a few laughs. I mean, if you can't laugh with someone, why spend time with them?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can't wait for part 2 of the video, Gil.
Okay, well, you guys just let me know what works for you. Like I said, my schedule, I'm sure, is much more flexible these days than yours.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for tonight.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were watching and they've really benefited from this. So and I will upload it onto YouTube for those of you that have missed it. But yeah, any last words from anyone?
Well, we will see you next week, Gil. Can't wait.
Great. And I was just say, if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to message me or email me. I can get that from you or you guys. Okay.
Yuri
All
said,
right,
thank you and Gil for conversation. Thank you, Yuri, for watching. And Mark, I've got to give Mark a badge or something. I don't think he's ever missed an FBS chat. So we love you for that, Mark. And you are fantastic. Can I just ask, Gil, that you don't go anywhere, don't press any buttons. And for the rest of tomorrow, tomorrow at FBS chat, we are talking to Naomi Whitehead. Lovely lady. We all love Naomi. And then Wednesday, we are talking to Evan George from Brief in London.
When is that?
That's 4 p.m. UK time. I've got to learn to always say UK time because there's so many people from watching all over the world that I've just got to always remember UK time. Yeah. And I'm getting the hang of that now. I'm getting the hang of it. Yeah, so guys, we'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock with Naomi. Take care.
Great. Bye, guys.